Stadium. The Dameron Deck is where we call it. I'm Vance Palm, and this is our pregame show. And as always, for the pregame show, I bring along Jeff Evans from the Bakersfield Californian. The Renegades tonight hosting the Owls from Citrus College. Both teams come in with an 0-5 record. Someone's getting out of here tonight with a win. Someone's going to be 0-6. I bring in Jeff Evans now. Jeff, good evening once again. Jeff, before we talk about tonight, we'll do what we always do. Let's go back a week ago. It was a 1 o'clock kickoff on a splendid, beautiful day in Valencia, California, but the Renegades could not get past College of the Canyons and suffered their first time ever record of 0-5.
Well, bottom line there is, again, a little bit of the typical inconsistencies on offense, and they couldn't stop the last 6 minutes. They couldn't get Canyons off the field, and you had a shot at one. There was a penalty, a very kind of a questionable call. It was a false start against Canyons. Referee was a little slow in blowing the whistle, and Bakersfield player hit the quarterback, and bam, flag came out, personal foul. And I don't know how you can. Chudy pointed it out. You can't really have the kid stop because there was no whistle up until there's no way to react. That really hurt him. It was going to be 3rd and long. They gave him a first down, and they ran the clock out. It would have. I mean, Bakersfield wasn't moving the ball. They were struggling, but at least they would have had a shot if they could have gotten the possession at that point. But again, you got to do more than 14 points, especially in this high-octane, high-offense era of football.
All right, this is the pregame show. Bakersfield College Renegades hosting the Citrus Owls tonight. There's a lot of points I want to get to in our pregame show. We also have our interview with head coach Jeff Chudy from yesterday with Kirk Boyer. Let's get to one of the 2 more pieces I want to get to before we move too much further. We're going to show a graphic tonight. Louis Amisto has a graphic of our combined opponents' record going into tonight. We are 0-5, but the teams that we've played are a combined 23-1. 23-1. 4 of those 5 teams are 5-0. You talk about a tough schedule for the Renegades. It tells the story. It tells part of the story of our season.
Well, I mean, the Bakersfield College team this year, in my mind, is a little below par from an athletic perspective from what you normally see here. But when you run into teams like that, it just kind of, really emphasizes the difference there. And back in the old days, Bakersfield would, they've never been 0-5. Well, they have a lot of years where they've had kind of weaker opponents early in the season. You kind of can get a little fat on some guys, get your confidence up. Get maybe your freshmen get some game action against weaker opponents, and you'll get wins here and there. Now, the way the Southern Cal Football Association operates, if you're a strong team, and Bakersfield's considered a strong team, you're going to be facing strong teams in your non-league games. And that's why Riverside, Long Beach, people like that are going to be in your non-league opponents. Now, in this case, Citrus last year was a bowl team, and and they had high hopes probably for just like Bakersfield did this year, and they come in 0-5. So sometimes, sometimes you just have one of those years.
The next point I want to get to was the point that you started off your article in today's newspaper. I want to thank you for that personally, and we were talking about this, you and I and Coach O'Brien, our spotter Coop, and the Lynch Mob were downstairs talking about this great article that you wrote, how it puts everything in perspective. Tell our audience that's listening and watching about that article and what it's all about.
Well, Terrence Young, who's a freshman defensive back from New Jersey, who made a hit last week in the second half. Just it looked like a typical. You see it a million times. Making a tackle in the open field, and all of a sudden he's lying on the ground, flat on his back, and it looked his legs were moving as he's moving his left arm, waving as he left the field. So we just thought, well, got a little. They're probably being precautionary. Well, turned out that he had paralysis on his right side, and so all of a sudden now you're talking about a potentially real serious injury, and he was hospitalized all the way through yesterday. They released him from the hospital, and he's in a rehabilitation facility now. Coach O'Brien, who's one of the assistant coaches, had mentioned that he saw Terrence Young today and said they're really excited that they think he's going to make a full recovery, and that's great news. But he still has no feeling in the right side, right hand. So it's going to take a little bit of rehabilitation time and things to do that. But that's great news, though, that he's not going to be permanently disabled. And but it's still a traumatic thing when you have a player, and it's a kid, especially a kid who's not from the area. Now he's here by himself. He has a roommate. But you have somebody like that who's on the field, he's lying down, his family's 3,000 miles away, and that's a real tough situation and very traumatic for the coaches, emotionally draining, and because you care about these young men. That's and if you're a player here, whether you're a local player or not a local player, your families are, as to coaches, you're responsible for their players, and you know, and nothing feels worse than having somebody you're responsible for being injured like that. And it was, again, wasn't a cheap shot. It was just part of the game of that particular time.
Sports Information Director Francis Mayer just came by and gave us a thumbs up and said, by the way, Terrence is listening to the broadcast. And Terrence, want to say hello to you. Know you're doing well, my man. Appreciate it. And also in Jeff's piece, he talked about how he's got the game films up. He's watching game films. He's now going to be, you know, an extra set of eyes and ears. So Terrence, we love you, man. You're our guy, and we hope you're going to bring us the big victory tonight. We know you're doing well, and you're a big part of this program. And thanks, Jeff, for touching on that and putting things in perspective. When we come back, we're going to hear from Kirk Boyer's interview with our head coach, Jeff Chudy, from yesterday. And then I'm going to have Jeff Evans switch from Evans to Chudy, give us the X's and O's, and talk about the Citrus Owls when we come back right after this.